Welcome to Upticks with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, we help high net worth individuals overcome financial complexities. We do this by enhancing financial literacy and discussing topics in a language free from industry jargon. Join us as we help explain exactly what having a solid financial plan means, as Jake draws from years of experience in helping hundreds of individuals get financially organized and focused on their goals. We hope you find Upticks educational, entertaining, and shareable. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to the show. This is episode 250, Tracking Your Performance. Corey, welcome back to the show.
Jake, welcome back to the show yourself.
Well, thank you. I owe you one for holding the fort down. As many of our listeners and our audience knows, Rachel and I were on quite the hiatus. We visited Amsterdam, Paris, and the Loire Valley. So, Corey, I am now an official travel pro. I've been on trains, planes, and automobiles. I've been there, done that, seen it all. And you know what? I'm a homebody. I'm glad to be home.
I was going to ask you your tip for us. Stay home.
Yeah, I'm glad to be home in my own bed. I mean, I saw some really cool stuff. You know, I saw this on a show the other day. Air conditioning is a privilege. I respect that now. Where we stayed, they weren't big fans of air conditioning. It was just a really old building, very cool building, but very old. And yeah, so I'm sleeping better. But I did say one thing. The food in France was far healthier. I don't know if it was that much better, but I came back to the States and started, eating my normal diet, which is rather healthy. And I don't feel as healthy as I did over there. So it's really unfortunate, because I think America is an amazing country, and you would think that our food quality would be the best in the world. And I don't think it is, in my opinion. Maybe that's a topic for another show, but anyways, but yeah, still some really cool stuff.
Good. Did you have a highlight of the trip, Jake?
I think you asked me that, didn't you? I don't know. I think just seeing Rachel happy and healthy, that was the highlight. How about that? So hopefully she's watching this.
Happy wife, happy life. Good answer.
Yeah, we had a good time. I got into a small wreck into a car with my bike. It was pretty funny. Nobody was injured. No cars were damaged. The bike wasn't damaged, but the people on the bike tour were laughing at me. That was pretty funny. But the whole trip was great.
Good.
It was kind of fun to drive a car. I rented a car in the Loire Valley, so it was kind of fun driving around. I got old, but they're really big fans of roundabouts in that part of the world. I mean, I must have went through literally, Corey, like 100 roundabouts.
I believe it.
So instead of stoplights, they would have these roundabouts, and so that was pretty fun. But yeah, highlight was seeing my wife happy and healthy, because she felt great the whole time she was over there, pretty much too. So
good. Well, welcome back. We are happy to have you back, and I'm glad you guys had a great trip.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. And for our audience watching this episode, we decided to start recording back in our office. The polos and in our home offices really just wasn't us. And part of the deal here at Falcon Wealth Advisors is we feel that we're very authentic to who we are. And believe it or not, we're guys that wear suits. And so I feel more comfortable recording in my office and not my home office. And so you can, and when clients come in, they're used to seeing me in a shirt and a tie, not in a polo. So that's who we are, and that's how we want to record. So that's what we're doing, Corey. All right, good. What's new with you?
Not too much. My wife, Cassie, and I went to visit my brother in Chicago over Memorial Day weekend, which we enjoyed. We had some nice weather. Really spent a lot of time walking around. And as Jake, and probably a lot of people watching and listening, I am recovering from an injury, a pickleball injury of all injuries. A torn calf, and that really held up great through the weekend, which I was happy about, being able to walk around. It's good to be mobile again. Out, no boot, no crutches. I can walk around as is.
Good. Yeah, you're a quick healer.
That's a privilege too.
Yeah, that's a quick healer. And do you have a highlight of Chicago? Did you do anything fun that you hadn't done before?
Yeah, we went to 3 different restaurants actually for dinner, 3 nights while we were there. All places we had never been that we really liked, and we've been up there a lot visiting my brother. He's lived there for 10 or 12 years now, so we've feel like we've seen a lot of the kind of quote unquote touristy things. So it was, we enjoyed kind of just living like locals while we were there for a weekend.
Nice. Yeah. Chicago's a great town. So good. I'm glad
It
you
is.
guys had a good time. Easy flight too.
Yes. Yeah. A little easier than Amsterdam, I'm sure, or Paris.
What'd you think of the new airport?
I think it's nice. I think it is. It wasn't until the new airport opened that I realized personally how, in my opinion, we really needed that. I think that it makes a big difference. I think that there's, some quirks about it, probably some parts that people love and other parts that people don't like. But overall, I like it.
Yeah, it's nicer to leave from and to come home to, believe it or not. You just feel a little bit better walking through. Even after we traveled, it was almost 24 hours it took us to get back home from France. And just being back in that airport felt like home. So it was nice. Okay, good. So let's enough about us. Let's get on to the topic of today's show.
Let's do it.
It's a very important show, and it's our 250th episode, which is crazy, Cory. We started this show, years ago, and to be at 250 is pretty awesome. I'm very humbled. Our subscriber count continues to grow. I met with a new person that I hadn't met with before, who lives in West Virginia, and he's like, "Yeah, I listen to Upticks all the time." And so he knew a lot about me personally and knew a lot about us and our process at Falcon Wealth Advisors. So again, that's a big reason for this show, is that we want to enhance our clients' financial literacy so that ultimately they can understand what their financial plan means to them. So I'm really excited that this gentleman was listening to our show. He knew about our process, and it was a very productive conversation because he already knew what we stood for and how we see things. So that was really humbling and very cool to see. So, but for today, we wanted to talk about tracking your performance, because there's been, a lot of volatility in the market in the last few years. And I think it's important that clients and even non-clients understand what they really should be looking at when they're looking at their investment performance. I think, Cory, you and I are in finance, and we're looking at stuff every day, and it's easy for us to understand and compare, but it's not easy for the average person to understand, well, how is my performance and how am I really doing? So I thought it was important that today we're going to go over 5 items that will help you properly track your performance. And I'll kick it off here, Cory, with the number 1. Number 1 is know your target. Your performance really should be a relative measurement. And what I mean by that is that almost every client, if not all of them, most of our clients have a financial plan. And in that financial plan, we will articulate and literally type out a target rate of return for you. 6.34%, 7.82%, whatever it is, that's the return that you need for your financial plan to work according to your financial goals. And so before anything else, before you do anything else with your performance, this is why I listed this as number 1, is that you need to know your target. And everyone should know this, right? You should be able to, not that this will probably come up in a cocktail hour with your friends, but everyone should know what target rate of return do my investments need to average over the next 10, 20, 30 years for my financial plan to work. And I think that's a great starting point that'll help, calm some of this noise that you hear in the media and the short-term volatility. Is if you know your target, it's the key here to understanding if your performance is underperforming or outperforming, right? So again, if your average rate of return is over that target, that would be a good thing. If your average rate of return is below that target, that'd be a bad thing, and that's something that you'd want to dig into deeper. Cory, do you have anything on that before we go into number 2?
No, I don't. And I think if we're ready, I'll just move right into point number 2 here, Jake, because I think I'm going to piggyback some off of what you talked about. And point number 2 is track your performance against a benchmark. And in my opinion, when we think about measuring your performance, thinking about it in relative terms, like you mentioned, Jake, and evaluating it versus a benchmark, in my opinion, a client's target rate of return in their financial plan is effectively what their benchmark should be. In other words, when kind of viewing like the way that you just described, what is working or not working, what's successful in the financial plan, really that target rate of return is what matters more than what's happening in the NASDAQ or the Dow Jones or with interest rates or with the dollar or whatever else it might be. Everything that we're, bombarded with, frankly, if we pay attention to the financial markets. So I think that it's important for clients, like you said, Jake, to understand what their target is. And then when you're tracking it against a benchmark, I really think that target is effectively what the benchmark should be. But for clients to understand also, though, that when we have a portfolio that is diversified, that our intention is not to just simply mirror what the S&P 500 does or mirror what the Dow Jones does. We may have different companies in the portfolio that may be a part of different indexes or benchmarks in that way, but ultimately aiming to achieve the target is really what matters to someone's plan.
Yeah, I get that, but I don't necessarily disagree with you, but to layer onto that,
Yeah.
I also think though, so for a client, let's say they're not hitting their target, Corey, that's what I was alluded to with this benchmark is like, well, yes, your target's 7%, for example, and if your performance is negative, well, if the S&P 500 is negative and the bond market is negative, well, then you're
Sure.
not going to be hitting your target. And so that's really what I meant by the benchmark here. And I kind of sprung that number 2 on you. Say, hey, talk about this today, Corey. And you're right, though. I don't want to discount what you said. You're absolutely right. Your ultimate benchmark is your target rate of return. However, though, I don't want you to expect your stocks to go up if the stock market is down. It doesn't always work that way, right? And so, sure, that would be great. And obviously, we
Sure.
want that to happen.
Yes.
And we're not trying to beat the S&P 500. And I think that's where you were going with it. We're not necessarily trying to beat the S&P 500, but you have to understand, and I told this to a client the other day, that we can't control the direction of the market, but we can control how much we participate in the market. And so that's what I really want clients to understand is like, and that's what I show them, Corey, in every review is like, look, last year your account was down 5%, but the market was down 19. That's a great thing. It doesn't feel that way, and it's easy for me to say, but ultimately, if we track it against the benchmarks, S&P 500, the bond market, international markets, if you really want to peel back layers of that onion, that can tell you, okay, well, I get it. The direction of the market hasn't been great. My account is participating in this way. So to me, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really good. And that's exactly why, Jake, to your point, we're looking at the capital market returns every time we review with clients. We're evaluating their performance, but also, like you said, the bond market, the international market, the domestic S&P 500. What have those benchmarks done in the same time frame? And we're using that as the filter or the lens in some ways to understand how the portfolio, a client's performance is doing relative to what's happening in the market.
Right.
Yep, good.
Good. I threw a curveball at you before the show. I like that, Corey.
That's all right.
Keep you sharp. I keep you sharp.
Sometimes you swing and hit a home run. Other times you swing and miss.
No, and you're right though. It is the target, but again, we can drill down
Yeah.
and look at that and look at those different indexes and see how they're doing. So let's go into number 3 here. I think this is a very important one actually, is to not listen to other people's claims. You know, you might have a coworker, a family member, a friend. You know, let's say you're making 6% and they're like, well, I'm making 12. You have to be careful. And I'm not suggesting that all your friends are liars. I'm suggesting, though, they may be coming from a place of ignorance and they actually may not be looking at their statement correctly or really understanding their performance, or maybe they're not looking at the same time frame that you're looking at, or maybe their allocation is different, right? We had a client saying, hey, you know, my buddy's making more than me. I want to make that much. And I said, okay, well, how is your buddy invested? Are they more aggressive than you? Are they less aggressive? What stocks and bonds do they own? Again, I don't want clients getting caught up in comparing their performance to other clients. Now, again, if somebody's your age and they're in a similar portfolio, you would assume your performance should be around theirs, but it's not always the case. Every client's a little bit different. And this isn't a horse race, right? And this isn't a measuring contest. We're here, and going back to number 1, to hit your target rate of return. That's what we care about, because ultimately, for our clients, if we can hit their target rate of return and their financial plan is healthy, they can be financially independent. And they can make work optional. They don't have to work. They can retire. And that's really what we care about. So you have to be careful. You have to take it with a grain of salt. It's human nature to talk about when you make money and avoid when you lose money. Because I also challenge that client and said, well, how much did they lose last year? Why don't you ask that? I mean, yeah, they're up out of the gate, maybe a little bit more than you, but did they lose 3 times as much as you last year? Well, then that would be a problem, right? And so you don't want to listen to other people's claims. You got to be careful with that. And again, it's just human nature. I'm not saying that humans are bad. It's just they might not be reading the data correctly, and they might not really know what they're talking about. And it doesn't make them bad people. It just, you just have to say, great, I'm happy for you, and move on, right? Or if you really want to compare, what I'm going to need is their whole portfolio, right? I'm going to need their history. I'm going to need all their holdings, and then we can drill down and really look at it with you. But unless you can get that information, there's really no reason to have that conversation. Cory, do you want to add anything to number 3 until you want to number 4 here?
I think the other piece, I think you described that really well, Jake. The other piece that I would just quickly add to that is other people's claims about the future. We talk about that on the show, what people are expecting to happen or what people are predicting will happen in the market. I think that just goes into listening to other people's claims. We know that we don't know the future. No one does. I cannot tell anybody what's going to happen tomorrow or a week from tomorrow or a year from tomorrow. So that all of that holds true. And I think we really, in a lot of ways, I didn't actually expect it necessarily coming into the show, Jake, but we really, I think we're reiterating the right point, which is that it's going to go back to the target return, because that's, again, the piece that matters. And just because there's someone that is predicting a crash or a boom or anything else in the market, that doesn't matter. What matters is the target return. That's what makes someone financially independent. That's what maybe allows someone to retire early, so they don't have to listen to their coworker or their buddy talk about how much money they're making anymore, right? I'm just making a joke, kind of back to what you were talking about, Jake. But yes, that's what matters.
That's a good one, Cory. You're absolutely right. People on social media, on the television and newspapers and blogs, you hear us, yeah, we'll have a general outlook because clients will ask us all the time, but we're not making bold claims of predicting the future. Nobody can do that. Nobody. Warren Buffett is probably arguably one of the best investors of all time, and he doesn't claim he can do it, right? And so again, why would your buddy at work be able to predict the future? Or Cory, a self-evaluation here, why would the individual know? Why can you claim you can predict the future? You can't predict the future on anything else, but you can predict the future on your stock portfolio? What are you talking about? Go play. If you can predict the future, go play the lottery, pick the winning numbers. Then you don't have to worry about the stock market.
Good call. Good call.
So good. So Cory, what's number 4 on our tracking your performance?
Understand that different investments perform differently. So when we talk about different investments performing differently, we've just highlighted this a little bit. We talked about bonds and stocks and domestic and international and everything else. But as our clients know, the way that we ultimately invest capital to hit their rate of return, to make their financial plan work, is to have their portfolio diversified, because we don't want to be overexposed or take too much risk invested in any different area, but know that things will perform differently, especially in a diversified portfolio. Some things will zig while other things will zag, and vice versa. Sometimes your portfolio, I would expect, is going to be down less than the market. And there's going to be other times where your portfolio is going to not be up as much as the market. But I think the point really is that target rate of return that I keep kind of pounding home here, but I think that's an important part. That's really what matters. But understanding that things are going to perform differently at different times.
Right. And clients, that's really good. And clients need to understand that we have very boring investments in the portfolio, right? Like cash and treasury notes. And then we have very wild stuff in there too, that'll shoot up 20%, 30%, or down 20 or 30%. And to your point, that's diversification. And so you don't want a portfolio of only boring, and you don't want a portfolio of only wildness, right? And so our team, our investment management group, they have something called an investment policy statement, where Cory, you and I, over years of working together and managing money for clients, have developed this investment policy statement that they adhere to. And it's basically from our studies at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School and our experience in managing money for clients. And we've evolved this investment policy statement with the hopes that we can continue to hit our clients' target rate of returns, taking the least amount of risk as possible. So again, portfolio construction is way more involved than just picking winners and losers. Again, there's a lot more that goes into it, and a lot more that they're doing on a daily basis. And for clients, when you're tracking your performance, you have to understand different investments are going to perform differently in different economic environments. And we do that on purpose, so that, again, hopefully your dips are shallower and you can participate on the upside. That's really what we're looking to do.
Yep, that's really good, Jake. And I think just one more quick point to add to that is that if everything in your portfolio is moving up together or everything is moving down together, that means the portfolio is not diversified, which just really kind of reinforces the point here that things are going to perform differently. But if everything's going up together, in all likelihood, that very well may mean the portfolio is not diversified and everything may move downward together as well.
Right. Yeah, you don't want that. Yeah, and weirdly, as weird as that sounds, you might not necessarily want everything in your portfolio up all the time at the same time, because that typically means, like you said, you're overexposed in one sector, and if things come crashing down in that sector, you might lose a lot more than you need to. So
Yep, you can own a bunch of different investments, but if they're all correlated together and
right,
they're all performing the same, you're not diversified.
right. Good. And then the number 5 is to stay away from advisor sold products. We really aren't fans of advisors charging a percentage of the money that you have to just slap you in a mutual fund or an ETF and call it a day. I think you're layering up your fees. Yeah, nobody has control, or the advisor doesn't have control of the investments because they're outsourcing it, and you really don't have transparency. So you're paying more than you should. The advisor, quote unquote, really isn't managing the assets, and you don't really know what you own. So again, we don't really like using products at Falcon Wealth Advisors. Obviously, if we're helping you manage your 401k and that's the only option you have available, we will do it. But certainly, once you open an account with our team, we're not going to buy products for you. So again, stay away from those advisor sold products. Now, again, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, I can get it because it's a full-time job managing money, and you certainly don't want to do it casually. But again, if you're working with an advisor and they're just slapping you in products and charging you a fee, I would really question the value that they're bringing to the table there. Because again, we just feel like we can go direct to the stocks and bonds and trade options for certain clients. And for us, that's to us a better way for the client to do that. So we like to stay away from those. But let me drill down for our clients a little bit, Cory, and then we'll wrap up, of course.
Yeah.
But so for clients, I want to explain something. So when you're looking at Charles Schwab, that's our preferred custodian with most of our clients. That's not really a good way to track your performance, believe it or not, because Charles Schwab will take into account if you add money or take money out, they'll include that in your daily performance. So again, if you're pulling money out because you're retired and you pulled out $10,000 on the day, it'll show up as a $10,000 loss in Charles Schwab. So again, I love Charles Schwab for the fact that it's easy to use. They've got an app. You can pull it up. You can see your account value. You can see your holdings. Very transparent there. You can see where your fees are paid from Charles Schwab. But it's not really a great way to track your performance. You'd want to go to falconwealthadvisors.com under the client login. Once you log in, you simply click on its performance, right, Cory, the link?
It is.
Literally performance. And that'll bring you to a separate software that company that we pay for, actually, called Black Diamond. And that is tracking your performance regardless of contributions or distributions from your account. So that's going to give you a more true performance number. It's also net of any fees that you pay. So it'll give you a net number. But if you add money, it doesn't help the performance. And if you take money out, it doesn't hurt the performance. So again, if you really want to track your performance, you want to go to falconwealthadvisors.com, log into the client portal, click on performance, and that's where you're going to be able to see how you're performing against your target rate of return. Your target rate of return is also listed there as well if you don't know what it is. Good. Cory, you got anything before we wrap up here?
No, that's great. That's exactly right. And that's the way that we're going to track it. It's the way that we review the performance with clients when we meet here in the office or via Zoom or the phone or whatever it may be. And I think that is a good explanation, Jake, because you're right. If someone's retired and they're taking distributions from their accounts and they're just tracking their performance on Charles Schwab, the quote unquote performance could look worse if somebody's taking money out of their accounts, but that's what they should be doing because that's why they worked and saved the money in the first place. We want to understand how the investments are performing, not how much money clients add or take out of the accounts.
Right. Good. So as a quick summary, number one, know your target. Everyone should know what their target is. If you don't know your target, send me an email, send Cory an email. We can let you know your target. Number two, track it against a benchmark. Cory would argue that should be your target, which is not a bad point. Also, though, if the stock market's up, and you're up, great. The stock market's down and you're down, great. If those are crossed, you want to look at that and see what's going on there. That's what we're looking at. Don't listen to other people's claims. Again, not saying people aren't truthful. I'm saying they might not have all the information, and it might not be an apples to apples comparison. Number four, understand that different investments are going to perform differently, and that's okay. We know that going into it. Frankly, we want that. And then number five, I would stay away from advisor sold products. If an advisor is getting you to roll over your money and putting you in mutual funds and charging you a fee, really would argue, what are they doing to do that? So Again, if you have a 401k and that's our only option, again, we'll do that. But ideally, we want to get you directly invested in stocks and bonds and options where appropriate. Very good. Anything else, Cory, before we sign off for the day?
Nothing to add.
Thank you, Cory. It's great to be back on the show. I miss doing Upticks, and we look forward to cranking out more episodes, and we hope you all have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website, falconwealthadvisors.com, and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.